Sounds up and pictures live.
All right. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Sorry for the little hiccup there. We had to work out some bugs on our end. Obviously, sometimes that's the way it goes with YouTube. So we want to get rid of that lag and make sure you guys are getting a nice stream, and as well as us. So to recap, we mentioned our giveaway again that we are going to be doing once we get to 1,000 subscribers. So I'm just going to re-go over that with you guys. We're giving away these busts here. So once we reach 1,000 subscribers, we're doing this giveaway to 10 lucky winners. So we're going to do full painted sets, and we'll do 10 of them, and 10 lucky winners will get those. So stay tuned for that. If you know anyone that wants to subscribe to this channel or would be interested in this channel, please help us out by spreading the word and getting it out there to everybody. We would appreciate that. Share on Facebook, share on Instagram, wherever you can. We appreciate it. It helps out tremendously. Okay. So to go over what we're going to do tonight, we're going to get into some painting skin on latex masks. How to do layered skin. This is a question I get asked a lot. What my process is, what's my approach, what do I use, what paints do I use, all that stuff. To start with, the mask has already been base coated. We're using a Death Studios mask sculpted by the late, great John Smith. It's called Gargantuan. It's a beast of a Cyclops mask. And I'm going to just go over some skin techniques tonight and show you guys, share with you guys how I approach painting skin. Let's see. Do we want to go over who is joining us tonight?
Sure, Casey. I've got, let's see, we've got a dedicated group here that bought and weaved with us, and we're super appreciative for it.
Yes.
Barbarian. So start from the top, we've got Barbarian. We've got Creative Critter, Creative Mutation. Chris Dawson's back in action. Jason's back with us, Jason J. And Jason, I'm going to practice your last name, sirs, because you're with us every week here. We do appreciate that. And we got more folks joining. We're almost back to where we were, Casey. We've got about 16 folks, and it's climbing.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, guys, again about that delay. We had to restart the stream from scratch.
Spectrum Internet, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Classic.
So probably our internet service or whatever it is. But we apologize. We had to restart it. It was very hiccupy and laggy. We don't want to have a stream going like that, especially with all the techniques we're going to be showing tonight.
We're not doing episode 1 again.
No episode 1 again. Which, funny enough, is still the most popular episode. Which is, come on, how is that most popular? It had the most hiccups. All right, so we're back. We're good. Here we go. Let's jump right into this this big sucker here, this gargantuan thing. This is kind of another just tribute to Death Studios, really, because this is a Death Studios mask. I got a blank from Jeff at Death Studios, and I base coated this a while back. And so to cover that, again, the base coat that I've used, which is nice and flexible and rubbery, it's just Prozade glue, which is a glue you can buy from special effects shops, mixed with acrylic. And you can use any acrylics you want to mix with that glue. You can do 50-50, 30-70. When I say that, I say 30% glue, 70% paint. That's roughly what I tend to use. You can use, it can eyeball that, basically. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that will leave you with a nice flexible surface. You want something more tacky and more flexible, then you would want to up the glue to more like 50-50. All right. And then I just hand brush that on with a brush, and let it dry. And you've got your base coat nice and ready to go. The techniques I'm going to cover here also apply other than the flexible base coat, which is not necessary on resin or rigid surfaces. This is a flexible surface, so it is necessary. Rigid surface type stuff like resin kits or model kits or busts or whatever. You can use all the techniques I'm going to show tonight. You can use all of them. Now, the paints I'm using from here on out, because remember, the base coat is a flexible thing, but from here on out, I will not be putting Prozade, excuse me, I said that weird, into any of the paints. Okay, I will just be doing thin layers of paint to build up the skin. So I want to be really clear about that. So you're not going to see me mix Prozade into the paint. That's only on the base coat. Okay, so these techniques do apply to all painting apps. Okay, so let's jump right in, shall we? Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, so I will be mixing colors, airbrushing. I'm going to show you some sponging, flicking, speckling, whatever you want to call that. Modeling, you name it. We're going to get into a lot of it tonight. So let's do it. So to start with, what I always do, I do some. Now these are just techniques I've developed over the years that I use when I paint masks and I work on stuff like this. So this is just what I do. I'm going to show you what that is. And again, these can be any colors. You can use FW acrylic inks. You can use golden. You can use whatever you want. Right now, I'm using some Freak Flex and different brands. I have some FWs and stuff too. Okay, so usually when I paint a mask, especially creature or monsterish, I like to push a little bit on what I would call the boundaries of realism or skin or whatever. I like to push that a little bit and do some weird things that look interesting to me, and they kind of help create all these layers down the road. So and layer the mask in a way that makes the skin look nice and kind of creepy and fleshy and realistic all at the same time. All right. So they might seem a little strange to you at first, but you'll get the idea as we go. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this turquoise blue and some of this very pale green here. Almost half and half. And I'm kind of making what really is almost like a vein color, like the color of your veins in your skin, If you look at that, it's a brighter version of that, but it's basically what it is, kind of the especially once I thin it out or whatever. So I put that in, and we showed some of these techniques last week, with the water thinning and with alcohol and stuff. So I spray a little bit of water in. These paints are pretty thin to begin with, so they don't need a lot of water added to them. You're depending on the paint you're using, you're going to have to adjust how much water you're adding, how much you're not adding. And then this is alcohol in this bottle, this squirt bottle. So I'm going to add some alcohol, which thins the paint even more. Now, why do I add alcohol? Well, the water helps thin the paint down naturally without any problems, right? Because the acrylic paint has a body to it, has different things in it that make up what it is. So you have to thin those down enough for the paint to accept the alcohol. Then I add the alcohol. Now the alcohol's job is to kind of dry the paint on the surface quickly and also thin it further than the water. So you do a little water, a little bit alcohol. I always do it that way. Never add alcohol straight to paint unless you know that paint can accept that alcohol right away without problem. There are a few paints out there that can, especially very thin acrylics. All right, so what I look for when I'm starting with this color is really like bone structure, the underskull, the bone structure, some of the deepest areas on the skin, and just overall broad sense of just some, greenish blue tone kind of way deep under the skin. And I like to push some of those things, accentuate them. But I do it in a way that's very light and subtle. It's not overdone or over the top. So I like to start with the temple bone region, and I'll throw in a little bit of this kind of green. And like I said, this might seem really weird at first, but as you go on, let me throw my things here on. I can see my glasses. As you go on, as I go on, I should say, you'll start to get it and see what I'm talking about. I might even come in here and throw a little vein or a few veins, But generally what I do with this is just sort of carefully shade some of the bone structure that's coming through. And some deep areas. I'll just pick out some areas here and there. This is just one of those colors that's going to help in the end sort of show that there's depth to the skin. You know, when I'm done with it, you're not going to see a tremendous amount of it. You just see a little bit of it, and it just sort of indicates that there's a little deeper, something deeper going on underneath that skin. Helps sell the translucency. So I'll look for some of the skull structure at first, and then I'll pick out other areas where I think it'll work, I can get away with. And of course, the last thing I'll do is then look at, like, okay, where can I throw a vein or something like that, since it's a nice vein color. Now it should just barely show up on your mask. You know, it shouldn't like be bright green. You don't, if you're doing bright green or bright all over and it's really aggressive, that's not the right way to do it. It's going to look very weird, and you're going to have to overspray your skin with more skin tone to hide what you did. You know, so you want to keep these techniques soft and subtle and not too overdone. And you can do a general, I find, like on the back of the head or the top of the head, you can kind of get away with a general wide modeling. When I say wide, I'm pulling back away from the mask and letting a thicker, softer spray come out of the airbrush, and it's just like gives me a wider sort of all over modeling effect. And keep in mind, this is just, you know, layer number 1 out of however many layers. Usually I do quite a few layers. The beauty of this too is, you know, when we come back with reds and stuff, you're really not going to, you can knock it out really easily if you don't like something you did. So now I'm gonna go in here and hit some more veins, you know, vein up the skin so we see some of those kind of creeping through. Mask collectors love a lot of veins on their masks. A lot. Funny enough, back in the early days when I first started painting masks for commissions, I had a few collectors. One in particular, that is pretty much all he cared about, was how many veins I could shove into every mask I painted for him. It would just crack me up. I used to say, you know, realistically, not that many veins would be showing on even this monster. It's getting a little ridiculous, you know, because more veins. Put more. Can you put more veins? Put more veins. And I get it. They love it. They think it looks cool and it's creepy. But I think, you know, if you do too much, you go overboard, it gets a little silly. I think placing them in just the right spot and putting just enough is better than too much. I even like to put some in the ears here sometimes, you know, like just a little one coming down the ear there. You'll see that real close up on people sometimes. If you look real close, you'll see there's little veins in the ear, you know. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you know, I had some collectors that's all they cared about was how many freaking veins I could put in a mask. I don't want to put all veins in. What if I don't feel like it? Didn't matter what I wanted. Anyway, they were happy. As long as they were happy, right? Sometimes you'll get one down the middle here. We'll do that. You know, branch off a little bit. And these are real subtle, like I said. So all the layers as we go over, we'll cover up some of them. They're very soft, very subtle. So I generally just go around and find, you know, places where this color will look good and will help sell the skin a little bit better in the long run. Shit, sometimes it's even, you can even throw a little bit like in the inner ear, just a touch, not too much. You don't want to make it too green in there or anything. I mean, I'll go over with more colors over top of that. So let's not forget about this gigantic chin, man. Holy mother. No, what is he saying? Go, mother puss bucket? No.
They said there's blood in those folds.
Yeah, we'll get some red in there too, but let's get a little chin action here. Yeah, there we are. Cyclopsy.
Gargantuan.
That's his name. I even sometimes, this might seem weird, I'll throw a little bit up in the corners of the eyelid, you know. Seems a little strange at first, but because it's not real bony. Well, it is. It's, you know, it's around the eye socket, but I don't know. I just do what I think works and looks good. That's all I can tell you. Now, try to, you know, get some. Let's try to get some veins somewhere over along here too. You know, it's coming up the back of this head. Maybe coming down the side here. It's big mask, so a lot of surface to cover, man. A lot of surface to cover. Let's bring this in a little more, like so. Now sometimes it's tricky to spray veins over a lot of wrinkles like this, so you just do your best and see what you can get. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't look so good, and it's okay. I mean, you just, one way or another, as you go out with your layers, you'll work it in, you'll work it out somehow, and it'll work. But, don't hit me up later and say, oh, it didn't work, you said it would work.
Disclaimer, we are not responsible.
We're not responsible for bad skin painting, though. Anyway, we're almost getting to the end of this one color here. How much more can I really do of this? Oh my gosh, so much green. No, it's not really that green. When in person here, it's very subtle, like I said. So I don't know how it's looking on camera. Looking pretty good. I think it sells the point. And that's generally my first layer or layering of paint is this color. This is what I do first usually. I mean, not always. Sometimes I'll jump in with a red or something else, but usually this. And sometimes I'll vary it. I mean, I've done it where I use this same technique exactly, but with like a periwinkle tone, like which is like a purple blue, like a real light purple gray blue tone. So I've done it that way too. It just depends on the character, the mask, and what I feel it needs. Okay, so we're gonna be done with that color there. I think we're good. Oh, you know what? Let me put a few. I got to get a few veins down underneath. I'm gonna have to tilt him. I got to get this big jolly waddle here, because it's not going to make sense if we don't paint under here. Get some, I think we'll just throw some veins down under here real quick. What'd you eat for breakfast, gargantuan?
I ate a bunch of berries.
Yeah, these some eggs and some bacon and some ham and some hash browns and some nah, I don't know.
Human hand cakes.
What do gargantuans eat for breakfast on Monday? I don't know.
People.
Hey, villagers of some kind.
Yeah, villagers. All right, so that's the first color that I like to lay down, generally speaking. And then the next step I like to do right away, which is like one of my first things is go-tos, is I'm going to mix a tone here, but I'm going to do it on, you can use a paper plate or you can do it on like a piece of plastic. What I'm doing here, I have a little plastic dish lid here thing. And I'm going to take a bright red and some dark red and mix them together. And this time I'm not going to use any alcohol. I'm just going to use water to thin this, okay? So what we're going to do, put a little of this down like so. Put a little of this down like so. And we're going to get, I don't know, some water here. Be careful, this will squirt everywhere if you're, or splash everywhere if you're not too careful. And what I generally like to do is just mix this up. And thin it with a lot of water pretty well. And, you know, once I get where I think it's about right, you have to test this. Now, what I'm going to use is a sea sponge here. This is a sea sponge, you know, that you can get from a craft store. And it's got all these little prickly things, but you have to wet this. So we're going to wet it. Okay, so it's ready to go. You kind of activate it that way. Then becomes much softer and more pliable. Might need a little more. Kind of bringing the sponge back to life. When they're dry, they're like hard as a, or stiff as a board. So there we go. We got our sea sponge all kind of brought back to life. It's nice and spongy. You have all these little prickly guys. That's what I like. And we've got our paint here. I think I'm going to go a little, well, you know what? Let me give this a try. I'll just see how this looks. Now, the thing you have to do is put a little more water in. You just have to try this. And if it's too strong, then you put more water until it's not too strong. But if you go too far, if you thin it too far, you won't have any body to the paint. And then it won't, you know, it just won't go on very well. It'll kind of go on very runny and everything. So what I do, and I can already tell this is too much, so it needs to be thinned a lot more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin, first of all, I'm going to get this out of my, kind of thin out what's in there, and I'm going to come in here and spray more water and thin this out. Okay. So I keep thinning, and then I keep trying. Now, I'm going to try this again. Just have to kind of slightly dry out the sponge a little. Okay. And you will need a lot of paper towels for this nonsense. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here. Boy, that is strong still. Wow. I usually get it pretty much right away. It's pretty strong. Okay, let's thin it some more. It's bright color, so that's one of the things. And you can even wash this out like this. Okay, let's see if that does it. So now I'm gonna squeeze this out a little bit. Now you do want the back of the sponge to be kind of damp still. I'll show you why in just a minute. I think this will work now. I think we've got it. Okay, so that's better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to sponge, and then what you'll notice is I'm using the back side of the sponge to soften all those little broken up sort of, you know, marks that it's leaving of paint. I just gently tap, just tap, tap, tap. I'm going to sound a lot like, what's that famous painter that I was talking about last week? Bob Ross. I went blank on the name for like.
I was like, I know we talked about Bob Ross.
Yeah, tap, 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 tap. Or didn't he do that shit?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, tap, tap, tap. So anyway, you're gonna use this to Bob Ross your mask with some broken capillary. Not even broken capillaries. This is just like broken skin tone here. Some red. Some red tone. And this will bring the mask to life quite a bit. Like this, just this one layer of red here, you know, it's gonna really bring out the mask. As far as like looking alive and all that. Get this wet. The sponge does dry out pretty quick, so you have to kind of keep wetting the back side where you're gonna blend. You're kind of blending, you know, because as it dries out, it then doesn't pick up or soften out the paint as much. So you gotta sometimes stop and wet it a little bit. So you know, this is a great technique. In a quick one, actually, this can go very quickly because you can cover the mask pretty fast. In fact, I can pick up the pace here a little bit. I'm going kind of slow. So again, this is a technique you could apply on model kits or whatever. You know, you can use this on anything you want when you're painting real skin or whatever. And this will give you a fast modeling. This is much faster than doing it with an airbrush and less of a headache because you're not going to make it as, you know, really make any mistakes this way. Whereas like an airbrush, you can mess up or overspray or whatever and leave a mark you don't like. This is easy too because there's so much water in the paint. It's not drying right away on the surface. You have time to soften out everything and get a nice breakup on the skin. So yeah, I'll just work around, you know, until I get a complete coverage layer of this on there. And you can use other red tones. This is a kind of an orangey red tone. You can use more of a pinky red tone. You can use you know, different kinds of red tones if you want. You don't have to use this specific red tone that I'm using here. This is kind of a orangey red, I would say. I don't know. I just grabbed a red and went with it. I didn't even pay attention. So, yeah, you can use whatever as far as red. I just like to darken it a little bit so it's not too overly bright. So I use the dark red to do that. Okay, so here we go. We'll just keep modeling with our sponge. It's a really easy step. Anyone can do this. It'll give you great results quickly. And you can do multiple layers of this. You don't have to just do one color. You can, if you think about it, you could do a lot of different colors with the sponge. The trick is just putting them on nice and subtle, so it has a nice breakup. All right, we'll grab a little more red because we're getting kind of losing. Here we go. I mean, look how much of the mask is already done. It's covered up. It's quite a bit quickly. You know, if I was to airbrush all this on there, it would take, you know, a long time to get like coverage of breakup with an airbrush. Take much longer. Less control, really. And it's a different look, actually. It's completely different. This gives you a little bit more of an edgier, or a little bit, not edgier, I guess. It's hard to explain. It gives you a little more, just a different kind of layer than what an airbrush gives you. Airbrush is very soft, so if you do everything with an airbrush, you'll tend to have an airbrushy looking mask. So, you know, this is a great technique to break up some of the airbrushing effect. Airbrushing is great. It's one of the best tools, but it doesn't do everything. When I first started painting masks, I thought the only way to do it was airbrush, and that's just not the case. There's so many techniques and tricks you can do that are not airbrush related and achieve really fantastic results. So keep that in mind. And I can't strongly suggest to everyone out there watching this that, try your own techniques, try different things, because you never know, man, what you're going to discover. And that's how you discover things, is try things. Actually, that's how I got into this technique. Because I'd seen somewhere along the lines, I had seen someone use a sponge on something, but I didn't like the result. And the reason is I didn't like the result was they were doing it very heavy without thinning the paint. And they were trying to do layering like this, but it just was overly done, and I didn't think at the time. I was like, oh, I don't think that looks very good. I don't know about that technique. So I just ignored the sea sponge for so long. And then one day I was just so tired of airbrushing every single layer, which takes hours and hours, that I was like, I wonder, there's got to be a faster way to do some of this. There just has to be. And so I picked up a sea sponge and I was like, you know what, let me thin some paint out and try it, and tried some different techniques, and that's how I discovered this specific technique and how to do this. So this was just something, me trying it. I wasn't the first person to ever do it. Believe me, there's others for sure, but I don't know that they thin the paint as much or how their approach is or whatever, but this is just the approach I discovered, and I love it. I even do this at the end of the mask with like a creamy white, and I'll do a layer of this, and it really just breaks everything up and puts this nice thin layer over top and breaks all the other layers underneath up. It looks really, really nice. But you can see too, when it dries out, it just becomes more of a pinky, broken up, soft flesh kind of tone. over the whole mask. It really warms up the mask too. This subtle little layer over the top like this, it warms the mask up. And I'll stress this again, you want this to be soft and subtle, but don't go too wet. If you go too wet, man, you're gonna get like the paint just running into everything like a wash. And not, it's got to have just enough body to hold up on the surface as kind of a broken up dot, like a soft broken shape. It's not even a dot, it's like a shape. Like they're a bunch of little island shapes all broken up. That's what gives you the effect. All right, we can go into the nose a little heavier if we want. And that's another thing, you can keep layering this and it'll get more red and more. You know, we can do his ears, his earlobes. You know how the ears have like a little bit of blood in there. All right. So and his, you know, cheeks too, right? Cheeks get a little red and rosy. Especially cyclopses, they're out in the sun all day, you know, looking for food, or maybe they hunt at night because it's too hot. Who knows? Okay, so that's our second layer right there. I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there. Now what do we do with this? Well, you got to clean it out, so we spray it with a lot of water. And kind of squeegee it out. Usually I do this in a trash can or something. Actually, do you mind grabbing
Sure.
That trash can under there? Because that'll be a lifesaver for me. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so I'm going to get all this red paint out of this sponge as best I can. Really, if you're by like a kitchen sink or something, that's better to do. But I'll get enough of it out. Alrighty, and I'm going to get rid of this red paint so I don't spill it everywhere. And I'm going to dump this in the trash. And then we have a nice clean plate. We need it. Okay, so that's our...
Someone's saying needs more boop, boop, boop.
Oh yeah, tap, tap, tap. Tap your Cyclops real soft with your sponge. If I start talking like that on the stream, you guys are gonna all fall asleep. I used to fall asleep to Bob Ross, just like late at night, be watching it. Amazing artist, though. He was amazing, but yeah, man, I'd fall asleep in a heartbeat. It's that voice, man. It gets you. Tap that Cyclops real nice. Okay, that's just a creepy voice now. That's just getting all Buffalo Bill. All right, so there we have our red and all that good sauce. Now, usually the next step I'll do is I'll go in with some purpley reds or blue reds purpley reds or bluish tones or other things and start punching in some stuff. In this case, I think I'll go in with some of the purpley reds. So we're going to use a trans violet here, and we'll mix that down with some dark red here, something like that. Maybe a touch of that. Let's see. So I'm just going to mix a new color here. That's our trans magnesium. That's a Comart color, by the way, from Comart. It's a different brand. Medea, it's like by Iwata, basically. It's very thin, very concentrated color. It's great for airbrushing masks and stuff. Now I'm going to take a little of this Bloody Wooden Stake, which is a darker brown red, and a touch of this red, bright red that we used a second ago. So I'm just mixing up a different red tone here. Okay, now I'm going to do some water thinning here, like always, right? And then I'm going to do my alcohol. A little bit of that. Squirt, squirt. Don't call me a squirt. All right, here we go. So now I've got a different red tone in here in the airbrush. Okay, it's a much different looking tone overall. Because I'll use combinations of reds and stuff. You know, I'll use this to go in the nostrils and the lips and stuff. So let's start hitting some of these lips a little bit. Make them all pretty. No, just joking. That's not the goal. Alright, so I'm going to get a little life in these here.
Gargantuan's ready for his date.
Alright. I'm ruining this gargantuan mask for Ryan and everyone that owns it. It's like, oh, Casey's making him sound all weird. All right.
I'll never look at it the same.
I know I ruined it. It used to be cool. Now it's not. Now we're gonna make him cool. Don't worry. All right. So I'm just hitting in some of the nostrils there, and now I'm gonna go around and let me take the tip off of this airbrush. You sometimes take the tip off so I can get a little tighter spray, or a little more control, if you will. By the way, it helps to make weird monster noises when you paint. It's just part of it. You have to. Yep. Alright, so I'm going to hit this eyelid. Now, we won't be painting this eye tonight or any of that nonsense. We did all that last week to show you some eye painting, but we will be focusing on this skin as much as possible everywhere. So, and again, you notice these are thin layers of paint. You know, we're not trying to overdo this. Put a little red up on this top lid here. When the area is big enough, I'll also do a little modeling if I can get away with it, you know, if it's a big enough surface area. He's got kind of a big upper lid here, so. And then underneath this lid, it's probably nice and red and juicy. Holding that juicy eyeball in. And then what you see me doing here now is I'm just kind of going into these wrinkles to give them some life. Give them a little warm red down in there. Accentuate those just a little bit. Sometimes I'll just let the wrinkle make its own natural shadow, but sometimes I'll force a little red in it just to bring it a little bit more to life. You have to kind of accentuate some of these features, you know. They're also sculpted, they're accentuated, so it just helps sell the mask when you step back and look at it. Okay, so we'll hit some of these forehead wrinkles just softly to help the compression, you know, like he's really squinting down or whatever he's doing. It's not my stomach growling. Alright, so this live stream's just me making noises. But you can already see, like, you know, just even these 3 steps, how far we've come and brought this mask to life. Now, we're not done. By no means is that done, but you can at least see how far we've come if you look back and at where we started. You know.
And his teeth are popping a lot more with that red on his lips.
Yeah, once you start accentuating it, starts to come to life. And we're gonna get in. One of the things that tricks with masks, you can push out here a little bit, and if you need to get, if you have a deep crack that you need to accentuate here, you can push on the latex a little. Go inside with your hand. Can't do this with a resin piece, so it's a nice trick with latex you can get away with. And it just really helps get the paint focused down into that crevice. Now there's a lot of little wrinkles all over this guy, so I got a lot of places I can throw some of this red in. But I'm probably not going to hit every single one of them, just because it might get a little overdone. So I'll hit the ones I think are, more necessary. It's getting there, it's getting there, it's getting there. I'll just keep pushing and pushing until I like it. So that's a nice thing about having the paint thinner and not too opaque going on there, because you can continue to work over these colors over and over again without getting too overdone too quickly and build up to the look that you want. Like right now I'm just going to model on this nose just like a breakup, which is just a bunch of like real tight squiggly lines. Yeah, we'll have to push that. Little squiggly lines here. And this will help kind of give a nice natural breakup on that nose. And it kind of gives an overall redness on the nose. So that's cool. Give this mouth a little bit more. And we'll paint the teeth later. We're not going to worry about the teeth tonight. Now, another good place for these reds. I mean, I've still got quite a few wrinkles to get into here on the sides and stuff that I see. But another good place that you want to probably lay down some of this red is around the earlobes and whatnot. So, and inside the ear even, I like to do the canal, and eventually I'll go in with some black in there to make it real dark and deep. But I do like to generally model some reds in the ear. Mainly the lobe and around the edging of the ear. You know, we did it with the sponge, but it's nice to come back and model a little bit more with this other more purpley red. Help sell that. That ear has got blood in it and it's alive, and we get some model-y stuff, like almost veiny, sort of spidery, spindly veins in there. And we'll come, don't forget the back side of the ear, by the way. You got to come in and do the same stuff, you know. You know, he's got these big neck wrinkles back here as well. My God, how many wrinkles did John sculpt on this mask? He's killing me. No. Wrinkles and more wrinkles and more wrinkles and more wrinkles. Oh my God. Alright, so you can see how cool that ear's starting to look. Real fleshy and creepy and alive. That's what we want. And it's got all these real subtle wrinkles everywhere here. So again, I'll just hit the ones that I think matter the most. No need to hit every single wrinkle. You know, the ones that you want to bring out, basically. You want the viewer, the people that are going to be looking at the mask in the end, you know, appreciating it or whatever. You know, you want to, or if it, even that's just yourself, you know, you just want to bring out what you think is most important. I'm going to hit this cheekbone a little too with the modeling. You know, the great thing about the modeling, this kind of thing, is it ties right into the sponging that we did previously. So, you know, you don't have to do it all over the entire mask. You can just do it in certain key areas and get away with it. And has a nice blended in look right away. Especially since it's in the same family tone, you know, red tone that your sponging was in, so it works. So now I'm going to hit some of these wrinkles here, around these eyes, you know, on the side of the temple. Make a wart there, whatever.
War of the Gargantuans. Coming soon.
Alright. Let's do the chin. Let's get that. Let's do some modelly on the chin, man. And some of these, I like some of these fleshy. It's got some great fleshy wrinkles right here in this, under this lip. Looks really cool. Let's kind of bring those out. A lot of red, a lot of red. Alright, now let's break up this chin a bit, give the chin some warmth. Oh, dogs be barking, man. Dogs be barking. Alright, now we gotta go, you know, there's two sides of this mask, so we gotta go visit this side. And look at all these lovely wrinkles waiting for us. Paint me! Paint me! Now, if you're new to airbrushing and you're struggling, you know, with the control issues of being able to spray right where you want the paint and all that, it's, you know, one of the best things I can recommend to those struggling with painting using an airbrush is to practice. Is, you know, that's not always the answer everybody wants to hear, but it's the truth. You know, you just have to practice at it as much as possible. You'll get used to it real quick. It'll become like a second nature to you, like just an extension of your hand. You know, the more you do it and get comfortable with it. One of the biggest mistakes I see with newcomers or students or whatever is they just overly go way too harsh on all these techniques. Even when I show people in person and stress the fact of how thin and how soft to go, it's a control issue most of the time. Most of the time I see airbrush control issues where it's like the paint's just going on way heavier than what I'm showing them or whatever. Like I mentioned in the last stream last week, you know, just watch my finger. You'll see how subtly I pull back on that trigger. You know, it's just little bits, just barely letting paint out, you know. That's kind of the key. You got to get used to just not letting paint blast out all over the place. And once you get it down and you get the feel for it, you'll be good. You know, it won't be hard. Or it won't be as hard as it once seemed, let's put it that way. So if you're struggling with airbrushing, I can't stress enough that you practice a lot more. And just practice on scrap latex or practice on a napkin or paper towel or whatever. You know, you don't have to practice on one of your nice model kits or masks from whoever, you know, whatever. You can just practice on making circles and spraying veins and until you get the hang of it really well. And then take that you've learned and apply it to your masks and your monsters and all that, and you'll be off to the races. But yeah, one of the biggest things I see is probably just, you know, overdone paint jobs, you know, where the techniques are just too over the top or just too forced, too much thick layers of paint or, you know, things like that. So you want subtlety in every layer that you do. You know, unless you're doing some like straight black pattern or something on a frog skin or some weird thing like that, that's different, you know. But as far as skin, like this kind of skin, you know, you just want to be subtle with the layers. Alright, and you know, we've pretty much got some good coverage going on here now with this red. I think I want to enhance, or just I want to make sure I haven't missed anything, so I'm going to go around and check a few little spots here. Like under the chin is obviously one that always gets a little overlooked. I want to make sure we're not overlooking that. I'm just doing a wider breakup under here. It's also good to just look at your mask in this more upside down or pulled back, because you'll see a lot of areas that you might have missed or things you want to get that you didn't get. Naturally, we will probably go a little later tonight than our normal stream time, just because of the delay getting up and running, getting the stream up and running correctly. So hang tight with us. We're going to keep it going. Of course, as I'm feeling like I'm getting done with this color, I start seeing other things and like, oh wait, I need more there. You know, that's how it goes with mask painting. You're gonna constantly keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. But look how much we brought this thing to life. Pretty quickly, too, I might add. You know? Pretty quickly. Now I'm just pulled back and just softening in some red around right here, you know? And I'll do some in the mouth there. Get that lip line a little better. There we go. And you know what? While we're at it, let's just throw some into some of these little lip wrinkles here. I think I pretty much know what he's thinking. He's thinking, can I have some fruity pebbles before bed? Please, Mom? Please? No, you can't have fruity pebbles before bed. It's too sugary. Go to bed. You can eat someone in the morning. Oh, darn, Mom. Oh man, give him some fruity pebbles, man.
I know what we're eating on the next stream.
Huh?
I know what we're eating on the next stream. Fruity pebbles.
Fruity pebbles.
Oh,
yeah. Yep. Give me some fruity pebbles before bed. No. You'll be bouncing off the walls. Oh, Mom. Cyclopses love fruity pebbles before bed. Just saying. Alright. I think I'm going to say I'm happy there, because if I spray any more red, I'm going to go cuckoo. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Oh, it's a cereal stream. Alright. Alright, here we go. So that kind of covers our first three steps. So we did our veiny greens and undertones, and then we did our sponging with our brighter red, and now we've kind of come in with a dark purple red, and we've done our airbrushing of wrinkles and accentuating the lips and the eyelids and the earlobes and ears. There he is, looking pretty snazzy already. He's ready for his fruity pebbles. All right. Now, let's see. What time are we at?
7:25.
All right, perfect. I think what we'll do is we will take a break from some painting. I can rest my older 47-year-old eyes for a minute. I just got a prescription today for glasses, so that'll help. Yeah. So I'm going to take a break on this big bad boy here, and we're going to do our share, our artist share of the night. And which I like to do every stream, pick out an artist and share some of their work. Tonight we're going back to, we've done some busts and three-dimensional pieces in the past streams. Now we're going to go back to books. There's a specific artist I want to share who I think is pretty freaking remarkable when it comes to his imagination, and what he does is one of the guys I look up to, especially even today, a lot, man. He's just amazing. If you're not familiar with his work, you need to get familiar with his work. I'm going to share some of it right now. All right, Gargantuan. I don't have fruity pebbles for you, so too bad. Have some later. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? All right. So the artist share tonight is none other than the almighty badass mofo Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith. And no, not Adrian Smith, the guitarist from Iron Maiden. Adrian Smith, the artist. So when you type and look for Adrian Smith online, he actually has his own YouTube channel where he shares painting techniques. You should check that out. It's pretty amazing. He sits down and shows you a whole bunch of how he paints. But this guy has been involved with miniature game art, with I can't even begin to list the credits and things this guy's been involved with because I don't know them all. I'm not going to pretend I do, but they're pretty amazing. But he's been in, he's a well-known established miniature artist painter. I'm sure video games, I'm sure all kinds of things. In fact, this book, Hate, is from a board game that he helped do and come up with and design all the monsters and things for it. And I believe some of the story and all that as well. He has a multitude of books on the market. This is another one I managed to pick up not too long ago that's pretty freaking amazing. It's actually somewhat based on Lord of the Rings lore and characters in this book, in Adrian Smith's style, of course. But his style is what it just fascinates the hell out of me. It's incredible. Let's just dive into some of this because he paints in watercolors and he does digital and all kinds of different mediums, but his work is insane. I mean, look at that face, man. Look at that. That's just like all kinds of power and expression and anger and hate. Of course. Yeah, man. I mean, just look at that. That's insane. That one page says it all about Adrian Smith's mind and his work, and the raw power behind his work is what blows me away. It's incredible. It's very dark art, fantasy type stuff. But he also, I've seen him do some incredibly amazing, I'll just label it Lovecraftian style stuff. His imagination is pretty vivid and out there. This is just showing all the artwork behind the scenes of the game and the different clans in the game, and but I bought it for the art, of course. I mean, because the art is just incredible. And when you get to the back, let me flip more to the back here. The more crazy, twisted, mutated they become. These are like these weird tree people or whatever, plant people, warriors. If you can get this book, I suggest getting it. Look at that thing. Demonic, man. Blech, all those horns, teeth growing out of the lips. Oh, I love it. Juicy, man. This guy's the shit. This guy is the shit, man. When it comes to fantasy dark art, this guy is amazing. Every monster is great. Every design is great. There's really no weak designs. That's the other thing. Every time I look at some of his art, I'm like, good lord, man. Stuff is just coming out of this guy's head. So, I mean, look at that thing. What the hell? That is awesome. Twins. Grok!
His name is Grok.
Great names, too. Love it. Short, brutal, simple. Look at that thing with all the horns wrapped around its head. Oh, my God. Anyway, okay, so that's this book. And, I mean, again, amazing stuff from Adrian Smith. Let's look at this one now. Let's give a quick glance. I just got this book. Oh, okay, that's going to fall. He loves to do goblins and stuff, too, like on his stream and stuff. He's done a lot of goblins. They're really cool goblins, too. He'll do them like in pumpkin patches and stuff that are kind of alive. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Orc. That warg wolf. Obviously that's... what's the dragon from The Hobbit? Smaug. This guy shapes like Smaug. All right, so some more orcs and stuff hunting down the head of an elf or whatever. Yeah, just brilliant stuff, man. So I highly recommend, if you love fantasy art and monster art and all that type of jazz, I mean, hunt down Adrian Smith stuff. Check him out on YouTube. There's one of those little pumpkin people. Amazing. Check him out on YouTube. He's got a channel that he does painting, and and just take a look out there. He's got his Instagram page. Check out Adrian Smith's Instagram page. There's an awesome one, big giant horns, and I mean, this guy's been a huge inspiration to me over the years, and I just can't tell you highly enough how much you should look into his art and check it out. It's amazing. It will inspire the hell out of you. And he's done a bunch of, like I said, he's done a ton of board game. A lot of the guys that play these board games, and he's done a lot of artwork for these board games. And there's one in particular where a lot of the art is very H.P. Lovecraft. Monsters with tentacles, like kind of mutating out of their arms and just turning into all sorts of weird creatures and things. His imagination is really strong, really creative. His anatomy is great. Everything's great in his moods. The mood and the power and the raw energy out of Adrian's work is just absolutely mind-boggling. So, here's to Adrian Smith. You're a badass. You're a legend. We love your art. Keep it up. Keep painting. Keep making monsters. And he's got a cute little chihuahua that he likes to show a lot. So, there's to Adrian Smith. He's a badass. I love him. Love his work. Amazing. Okay. Now that we've got a chance to look at that amazing art, I think I'm ready to get back into painting. But before we do that, Ryan, we're going to call it back to you. And let's see if we have any questions from our awesome audience who stuck with us through these little bit of the hiccups tonight.
All right, Casey, we have some great ones tonight. We have in the queue at least 8 ready to go. So definitely let me know when you're ready to pause.
Let's do it. Let's start with number 1.
All right. First question is from Ashley Bosworth.
Okay. Hey, Ashley. Thank you for the question.
All right. Ashley asks, do you typically start with airbrush first or speckling, or do you switch up the process every time?
That's a good question. I typically, let's think about this. What do I typically do? I would say what I'm showing you tonight in this specific order is more typically what I do, which is start with a little airbrushing, then put a little sponging, then back to airbrushing, then maybe back to a little sponging or speckling or what have you. But I do switch back and forth a lot. Sometimes I'll go in with a brush and pick out certain things, which you might see me do tonight. So there's a whole bunch of back and forth. I don't really know. Back in the day, I used to airbrush right away, immediately with everything, and do all the first several layers airbrushing, and all the layers all the way to the end airbrushing nonstop. But like I was saying earlier, I find now that that's too airbrushy. There is such a thing as too airbrushy looking, and so now I choose to use the sponging and some different techniques, brushwork, to break all that up and make it all work together. The different techniques work together. I find that is the best result that I get anyway. You might have to try some things on your own and see what works best for you. But thank you for the question.
All right. Thank you, Casey. Next question is from Cart34.
Cart, thank you for the message.
All right. Cart asks, what PSI do you use when you paint fine lines so close?
Okay, so that's a great question. The PSI, which for those that don't know, it is the pressure that you are spraying at through your air compressor, because you can adjust the pressure from your air compressor through your airbrush hose. I actually tend to waver on the higher side than most do. I find most airbrush artists I know are somewhere in the 20, 25 range PSI, 25, 30 maybe max. I tend to be more in the 35 to 40 PSI range, even for the tiny veins and the fine stuff. I like a higher output of air pushing the paint out, and then I just control the trigger. Now, I would strongly recommend for you painters out there that are just new to airbrushing or getting into it, and you're not comfortable and set in your ways yet, to experiment. Try lower pressures. Try 15 to 20. If that seems too low to you, go to 25 and play around with that, and keep pushing up until you find, I mean, if it's too hot, it gets to be too high at 30, 35, 40, then, go back to 25. You're in the middle there. So I would suggest trying that. Now, there's a lot of different reasons to turn your airbrush compressor down. Like if you're going to do some speckling, you got to turn the air compressor way, way down, and have a super thin paint. That's more of an effect, a speckling effect. But yeah, it's just a lot of trial and error and see what you like. But I particularly love to use around 35 to 40 PSI. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. We've got next question from Creative Critter.
Creative Critter, thank you for the question, man.
All right. Creative asks, you may have already covered this in the beginning, Casey, but when you do the PAX paint base, does that eliminate the need to use latex paint thereafter?
Yeah, the whole point of PAX base coat is to not have to use anything else. Latex is finicky. Latex base paints can be a little finicky. I find, first of all, you can't really thin them out and put them on thin, where you could do that with Pros-Aid. I laid this color on just pretty opaque, but there are some tricks you can do to do translucent base coats over latex and stuff with PAX. You can't do that with latex base paint. Latex base is always just opaque. So you can't really control it. I don't like that about it. Also, what I don't like is if you have a mask that's been out of the mold and sitting around for a long time, the latex may not want to stick to it and bond to it. You kind of have to base coat your mask right away. I've had times where I want to spend, weeks thinking about how I'm going to paint that mask. Maybe I'm not ready to base coat it green or blue or red or whatever color right out of the gate. So then in that case, I like the flexibility of being able to base it whenever I want. And with the PAX, because it's so tenacious and grabs and it's nice and flexible, you don't need to worry about that. Like, you don't need to base coat it right away like you do with latex. So latex, there's some limitations. And also I've seen with latex, sometimes you base coat a mask and I've seen it where you get little speckles of dried up latex boogers, on the mat. I hate that. So I don't like to use latex. I stick to the PAX paint. That's what I love. You can brush it on if you don't want to airbrush it, because it's tricky to airbrush that since it's a glue. So PAX is what I like to do. Now I didn't show the base coating of this mask in the beginning of this video. We just started with already based out mask and went for the paint. So that's something I'll show at another live stream.
All right. Thank you, Casey. Next question is from Ghoul Fernandez.
All right, Ghoul, thank you for the question.
All right. Ghoul asks, hi, Casey. When I'm painting a mask sometimes, not always, I get this chalky appearance. What could I be doing wrong? Any tips to avoid this? Thank you.
Chalky appearance is if you are, let's say you're doing some layers on your mask, and then let's say you choose a light color, like a blue, a light gray, a light blue, a whitish, or whatever. If you're doing any techniques where you are overspraying from a distance on your mask, this is what I'm guessing he's doing, I'm not sure, but that can give a very hazy, chalky appearance to your mask. So I would suggest that you pull back on that, and what maybe you're trying to do, I'm just going to guess here, I'm trying to think of what you're doing where I've seen that chalkiness, is a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, when you don't build the layers up thin enough and subtle enough, you build the layers on too harsh. Well, then the next step is when you have these veins on the mask and they're just like way overdone, you're like, well, oh my God, I got to tone all that down. A lot of people use what they call a sinking technique, where you take the original skin color or some other light tone and you try to overspray to sink and push those things back down and make them subtle. To me, that's it's a good trick. It works, but it's a handicap in a way where you get reliant on that, and that sometimes can back you into a corner. I find it's much better if you try to build your layers up much thinner, more gradually, and finer, more subtle, and push to where you want to be rather than try to adjust back down to where you want to be by overspraying that, because a lot of times you get that dusty, chalky look, and then you have to warm it up, use warm tones or other colors to get rid of it. Now that is a trick. You can take colors like, if you get chalky, you can take warmer Indian yellow tones or red yellow tones and make them very translucent and kind of overspray, and it'll get rid of that chalkiness a little bit and take it away. Brown reds and things like that, but they have to be very thin. That's my guess on what is happening with his technique, but I couldn't tell you unless I really saw it in person or saw a picture of it or whatever. So hopefully that helps. Yeah.
All right. We've got, Casey, the next question is from JC Sculpture Studio.
Okay. Thank you for the question, JC.
All right. JC asks, what type of sponge is that, Casey, and where to buy it?
Okay, so the sponge, all this is a sea sponge. It comes in packs at your local hobby craft stores. Just go there, go to the paint sections where they have their brushes and everything, and you should be able to find packs of sponges. And what I tend to look for is these rounder, bristly types, this specific one. You'll probably only get one in a pack of this type. You know, there's usually a bunch of sponges that may not even be useful to you. Yeah, and sometimes you'll find these in singles or double packs, just these. So look around. You can order off of Amazon even if you want, if you can't find a hobby store or a good art store nearby. But what I look for are these rounder shaped bristly ones. You know, that way you can put on with one side and then take off with the other side and soften back and forth like that. So that's where to get those. All right, thank you for that question. What else we got?
Thank you, Casey. We've got two more groups of questions or two separate folks. We've got next up, Andrea Hernandez.
Okay, Andrea, thank you for the question.
All right. Andrea asks, do you have any advice in case you overpaint a layer?
Yes. If you've overpainted a layer, you can actually do what we were just talking about, where you overspray to tone it down, but once again you can run into chalkiness, what we were just discussing. You can take some of your base coat, your original color, and knock it down. You can sponge, or you can airbrush carefully. Let's say you accidentally overpainted some veins or something. You can even go into just the veins rather than overspray the whole mask. You can just go in, because when you overspray the whole mask with your base coat, you're going to end up pushing things away that you worked hard to get and you don't want to push away. So if you say it's just the veins, right? Well, then you can go in and knock those veins down individually with your airbrush and your base color and sink them down in and make them more subtle. And then go back with the other techniques you did and repeat them in those specific areas to catch back up to where you need to be. So that's one way you can, probably one of the best ways you can deal with overpainting problems. So if you're too harsh in areas, you can go into those specific areas and knock them down. Try sponges like I'm showing. The sponge technique is really great. It works really well to correct errors and help out like that. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Casey, we've got a triple threat set here for Mr. Ben Hernandez.
Oh boy, here we go. Triple set. Thank you, Ben, for the triple questions.
All right. They're all pretty darn good here.
All right.
Starting off, we've got, hi, Casey. I know I'm late to the party, but what color did you use for the base skin color? Is there a personal mix you make or a certain pre-made skin color brand?
Ben, thank you for the question. So what I use is with skin each time is I make it every single time differently. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for and what the character's asking for, So like in this case, I used a very tan, I don't want to say yellowy, but slightly yellowed out tan or slightly olived out skin tone for the mask. Okay, so a lot of times I'll put in my skin colors a little bit of olive green because that will bring a little bit more olive tone and sort of knock out some of the reds. Because keep in mind, as you watched, I put all these reds on. So if you start with a very pinky flesh tone, you're just going to get a very pinky looking mask and a very overly red looking mask. So you can see I started with a very subtle, I would call it like more in the light tan skin family color than anything else. So, but I mix it every time. And like I said, if you find that a lot of your skin tones have too much pink in them or too reddish, just knock them down with a little bit of olive green, and that will, like a brown olive green tone, and that'll adjust to a nicer flesh tone. A lot of people get confused with the flesh tones. Sometimes flesh tones come too yellowy, like for instance, the FW flesh is too yellowy. So you actually have to add a little red to it to correct it. And then once you have the red added to it, you might find it's a little pinky. So then add a little olive green, because olive green will counteract red, and then it'll make it a more olivey tan for you. So you have to add the two colors. So for FW skin tones out of the bottle, that's how I would adjust that. Then I would add it to my PAX paint, I would add it to my Pros-Aid to make PAX paint, and then base coat the mask. Okay, so what's his other questions?
All right, Casey, we've got, if I wanted to foam fill my half mask that I created, what foam would you recommend?
One of my favorite foams, I hate foam, by the way. I'm just going to be honest. I hate foaming masks. I only do it when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, I just make the mask very thick. Foams just have so many issues that they cause. But, sometimes you're stuck. You have to foam some masks, especially if it has a long, skinny neck or something. But I use, I believe it's like Berman's BJB soft foam is the best, because I find that it actually sticks really well to the mask. You can spray the inside of your mask with a glue adhesive first and then foam it. Also, when you foam mask, do it in small batches. I'll tell you right now, don't try to do it in one big batch. Yeah, because you will distort your mask, especially if your mask has started to pull away from the mold a little bit. Because the one thing about foaming masks, you have to wait for the mask to dry. You cannot foam a mask when it's wet still. That is a big no-no. The mask later can rot and have problems because it's trapped moisture in there, and it's a big mess. So you got to get it dry, and sometimes then the mask pulls away from the mold a little bit, and it can get distorted. So you got to do small batches at a time and then build out, But yeah, BJB. I forget the number. I'm sorry. Just call up wherever you're getting your foam, Berman Industries or whatever. Ask them for the soft BJB foam. That's what I use.
Cool. If I can find the link, Casey, I'll definitely throw it in the chat here after we kick off again. The last question from Ben here is, Casey, do you use the wash technique when bringing out the detail on your masks, or do you think that that's a lazy, sloppy technique?
I do use wash techniques, but I actually show that technique, differently. Actually, I show it in my classes with smaller busts. Because you see, as I went around and airbrushed all these veins, all these wrinkles, there's a way to do it to save some time, but the problem is you have to end up correcting a bunch of red all over your mask, okay? Because if you do that, then you get it in every single detail, and that's just not what I want all the time. Especially with masks, they're bigger, they're more realistic, and more, when they're on display, they're not as small, so they're more noticeable to the eye, so you can pick out things that are wrong. So I use a glazing technique, which I will get into on this stream when I get into painting resin. I'm not going to talk too much about it now because it's a process, but I use a glazing technique, which is similar to washes. And then I will show tonight a little bit of some wash techniques with a brush, but on a finer level. Now, what he's talking about is like washing a color into all the crevices to get them to come out. And I do that on the smaller busts because it's very easy to correct on a smaller piece and just airbrush over your base color to tone it all down, and then just keep going, and then go from there and start building your layers. But on a big mask, it does work, but it's and I've done it a number of times, and I still do it. It's a technique I do use sometimes. For instance, let's say I have a big dragon and I've painted the whole thing. I've done glazes into all the detail at the very end where the paint job's all done, but I want all the cracks to be black or have like a pasty, like dusty look. So I've done glazes over top of that, but that's a whole process to talk about at another time. But yes, you can do that technique. It's not a waste of time. It's just you need to know what you're doing because it will look gaudy and overdone right away, and you have to know how to then go back and correct it. So you're either going to be going back with your base tone and spraying and toning everything down before you go on with your paint job, or you're going to be sponging or doing something to settle all those things down, because every pore, every detail, every nook and cranny is going to have that red or whatever color you put in there to bring the detail out, you know, whether it's reddish or brown or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, it's a good technique. It's just one that has to be done carefully.
All right, Casey, sorry to throw a curveball here. We've got one last question if we have time.
Yep.
All right, Neil Leffler.
Neil, thanks for the question.
All right, Casey, Neil asks, what Frankenstein's monster skin tone do you prefer? More green, more yellow, or more fleshy? Because I'm such a huge Frankenstein fan myself, I had to throw that out there, make sure if we can get to it tonight.
What flesh tone do I prefer on Frankenstein? Let me think. That's a tricky one. Again, I would say it depends on the style of Frankenstein. Like, what Frankenstein is it? You know, is it an original take? Is it the Karloff thing or whatever, like a 6-scale head? I don't know, because it's hard to answer that question. It's really would be like, what mood am I in at the time? Because I could paint Frankensteins many different ways. In fact, I have one here. This is a maquette Frankenstein original monster, and you can see this is just started. This is not finished, but this is just a start. But you can see it's a greenish, but it's not just green. There's some light tones I've put on and some washes and things. And again, this is just very early on start. So where I'll go with this down the road, we'll see. But yeah, it depends on what Frankenstein I'm doing. I mean, actually, John Eubank, a friend of mine, just did a Facebook post on how to paint Frankenstein skin with some greens, some specific green Citadel colors and stuff. And he did a great job, and you guys should take a look at that. In fact, he shared that in the Monday Night Monster group. He did post it there. So it's a step-by-step tutorial on how to do Frankenstein flesh, and he did a great job. So I would suggest you take a look at that, because I really like the colors that he chose with that. But when I do them, I tend to gray them out a little bit, like the greens. I tend to tone them back, like subtle them down, or kind of give them a little olive tone. You know, I tend to do that sometimes. It just depends. If it's, let's say it's like a whimsical Frankenstein thing, like then I'll go more brighter tones and more crazy cartoony tones, you know. So it just depends on what it looks like, you know, I think, and then I choose the color to go with. Yeah, that's the best I can answer.
I was gonna say, if it were up to me, I would do like blue, like a tombstone grayish blue kind of thing.
I've seen guys do that.
Yeah, because that's my picture of Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, like dead, you know, like
Man kind of thing.
Yeah, you can.
Body.
Yeah, I mean, you could totally blue gray out the greens and with blues and grays and deaden it a bit, so it's not so, like, there's ways to do it where it says green to the eye, but it's not just crazy bright green. You know, that's I think is the stuff that always looks the more natural and cool. It's like the Barlow masks that I do, or when I paint Barlow, I don't do a Barlow that looks like a giant blueberry, you know, blueberry blue. I tend to gray it out and put actually skin tones over it, skin tones and grays and different colors to give it like this more realistic skin, but it's still blue, you know, but it's not crazy bright blue. Anyway, I can go on forever about that. I know we're running tight on time, so we'll end the questions there. I'm going to do a little more on this. We are pushing a little bit longer tonight because our stream got a hiccup in the beginning. We got, you know, delayed with all the laggy. The video wasn't playing right, so that took us some time to restart the whole stream. So let me do a few more layers for you guys on here, and then we'll call it a night. So stick around. Let's get a few more things going on this guy, and there you go. I think we got all the questions, Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, Casey, you knocked it out of the park. Thank you.
Killer. You're welcome. Thank you to all for your questions. I appreciate it. Hopefully I helped you out somehow with those. If not, you can always go on to the Monday Night Monster Jam on Facebook and ask me more questions there, or ask others too, because there's some great artists on there sharing their work and techniques. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, I talked earlier about like a periwinkle blue tone I use. I'm going to go into that right now. And we're going to take some purple, and we're going to take some blue. Where are you, blue? That's not the blue. Or is it the blue? I don't know. Thought I had a darker blue. Oh, I do. Okay. No, this is black. Okay, let's see what we got here. We'll make this work. Okay, so I'm going to put a little violet purple into my cup. And then I'm going to put a little bit of, is this like a gray blue? Oh, you know what we'll do? We'll do this. We'll do this blue. It's a little brighter. More of a cyan, turquoise blue. And we'll do a little bit of white. Let's see what we get. I always find I have to keep adding more blue. Is usually the case, because the purple's always so strong. And what you want to do is get it like in the middle before it's going to go back to a blue from a purple to get that kind of periwinkle tone. Let me add some of this dark blue just for the heck of it. I have a very gray blue choices here, so that's working. There's some gray in there. There we go. That's kind of what we're talking about as far as the color. You know, it's in between purple and blue, that value. I like that color a lot for masks and stuff. And so now we're going to thin it with the water like we do before. Spray a little water in to get it thinned out. And again, these colors are pretty thin already, so you don't have to add a lot of water to them. So keep in mind you may have to adjust different paints differently. Not all acrylics are exactly the same. Okay, so we add some alcohol. All right, now we're going to pop that in our airbrush here. Test spray on our paper towel. Looking pretty good. I always try a couple tests. I try a heavy one and then a light one, you know, just to see how we're looking. Now, what I'm going to do is go around some of the same places I did before. I'm not going to go into every wrinkle and whatnot, but I'm going to go into certain key spots. Like, for instance, I want to sort of cool down this corners of this eyelid and you know, around the eyelid a bit. You know, come around the nose. You know, in between the lip there a little. And I'm going to keep this more of a broad type of stroke, if you will, kind of thing, where it's not, you know, so tightly detailed and whatnot everywhere. I'm going to hit the edge of this lip a little, just to purple out the edge of that lip. You know. Kind of hit some of these under these cheekbones, a little shade, a little bit of shade, not too heavy, just something subtle. Help push it out a little bit more. Inside the ears a little bit, and maybe just a smidge coming out of the inner ear there up top. You know, there's always that little wing there. Put a little bit there. And then I'll use this color sort of in the same way that I used it for... let me put a little on the chin here first before I go there. But I'll use it sort of in the same way as when I use the green, the vein color in the beginning, just to add a little bit of break up soft to the skull structure. You know, it helps to give another underneath layer. Keep in mind that, you know, as we go layer and layer over this, it's going to change it and help, you know, help it just look like another skin layer underneath, you know. Like there's multiple layers going on there. So and there's some other ways you can use this tone. I like to put a little more blue into it, and then I'll use it at times to help break up some of the veins, the main veins that you see where they intersect, which I'll try and show you here in just a sec. Kind of a little more purpley blue sometimes. I'm just hitting the lower edge of this mask a little here. Alright. And you know, in person you would see this is starting to have all these nice layers working together. That's really the trick to getting a nice looking skin on your masks. Okay, I'm going to clear this out. And then we're going to take some of this. I'll show you this little blue trick here. Take some blue. And actually, let me sort of redden or liven this up a little bit here. Let's see. Some red and some black. Let's see. Let's see what we get. Might be a little dark. Might be a little dark and mucky. Maybe not what I'm looking for exactly. Because this blue that I have is a little gray. Let me grab a proper blue. That is not proper. Okay. Apologies, let's get a better blue here because that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's just mucky. We're going to start over. Sometimes that happens. You mix it, you think it's going to work, it's not going to work.
Rest in peace.
Goodbye. He gone. Alright, so let's try this again. Sorry. Let's go here. Let's darken this blue down a bit. There we go. More of like a Payne's gray blue. Put a little, oh, you know what? You gotta put water in there first. I almost messed it up. You gotta thin it out. Especially because that blue is a real thick paint. It's not an airbrushable paint. So we have to really thin that out. Okay, so now we have a very dark blue, like a Payne's gray. We're going to add some of this purple that we have to it. A little bit at a time here. And let's see if we can keep thinning this out a little bit here. All right. This should work. Okay. Now, all that work for this one little color. Oh my God. And I'm going to do very little with it. That's even worse. I'm only going to use this color for like half a second here. All right. So we're going to what I'm going to show you is you have to be very cautious with this technique, but like where you see a vein intersect with another vein, I like to come in and just slightly enhance with a little blue. So I'll kind of go around and mainly look for like interconnecting veins and just kind of slightly enhance that connection point, where they come together. I mean, you can even throw it down a singular vein just in a spot just to shift it. But, when you just put veins down, they look good, but when you add another little dimension over them, that's where they really start to come to life. Just add a little something extra over there, especially where they interconnect with one another. That interconnection point, it just changes, it shifts it a little bit and gives it a much more interesting, that's a good one to focus on right there, a much more interesting look to the veins. So if you haven't done, now you have to do this very cautious and careful. Thin out your paint to protect yourself so you don't make a mistake, because if you put it on too harsh, you're gonna really wreck all the work you did to put those veins down in the first place. And you can go through and pick out a few other veins to put it, but what it does is it gives like dimension to the vein. It's really interesting how realistic it starts to look, and it's cool. Basically, showing the blood in the vein like closer to the surface or whatever. Yeah, and I'll pick out a few here and there, like where it seems appropriate. Sometimes with older people on the side of the head, you'll see one, more of a purpley blue vein or something like that. For those that just joined us at the later part of this too, I don't know if some people have joined in later. I made an announcement early on. I should probably do that again because we had a weird start to our live stream tonight. But I will. A lot of people were asking if I'll be at Monsterpalooza. It does turn out that I will be attending the show, possibly Friday night, but for sure Saturday. All day I'll be at the show, walking around, chatting with people. I'm not going to have a table with artwork on display or anything. I may show some stuff in the gallery. I might bring some masks and stuff, but I will be there, walking around and saying hi to everybody. Buy some cool art or something. You can even come back and hit this outer edge lip to make it more purpley too, like push that a little bit more. But anyway, you want to be subtle, careful with this color, just really it's about those veins and just hitting a few of those. There we go. All that work for that one color, but it's worth it, I guess. The payoff is worth it.
Crazy, because that's always the thing that kind of sticks out to me the most whenever I look at things like this. It's always just those little pops of blue. It's like, man, how the heck did they go in there and paint that so delicately? It's like, wow.
Now you know. Yeah. Now you know. Yeah, it's those little shifts of color here and there. They're a lot more work, but they pay off, man. They really bring the mask to life. Definitely helps big time. Okay, so now that we've got that in, now one of the next steps I like to do, funny enough, is to kind of tone some of it down because you don't want too purpley of things going on. You do want bring some realism back into it. So a lot of times at this point, I'll take a little bit of a brown tone. In this case, we have some sepia. I even got some olive green mixed up here, but that's pretty olivey. I'm worried that there's so much green in that it'll knock down too much of the red. So, and then I'll just be fighting to put it all back in. So I'm going to take some of this this dark sepia tone here. It's just dark brown. I'm going to thin it out quite heavily. So let's get a little bit in our cup. There we go. This is a pretty dark brown. So then we're going to spray this down, thin it out pretty heavily. It has some green in it too, so, but it's just not as intense of a green as my other. And you can even throw a little, you know, you could do, well, let's do it this way actually. Let me show them, you know, because honestly I would probably do this just to be on the safe side. I would actually take the sepia here and to be honest, I'd probably throw some red into it just to counteract that green. And then I would mix this up. So now that's a bit much red. That's more than I wanted. 2 drops just went a long way there. So let's throw a little more of this back in. Okay. Just kind of making a brown, basically a brown tone. And so what I'm going to use this for now is I'm going to go in and airbrush, you know, very lightly, you know, and I'm just going to kind of like hit over this lid a little bit, and mainly the corners of the lids. I mean, it'll still be kind of purpley, but it won't be as unnatural looking. And I'll even hit just a little bit of the lip here. That little bit of green that's in there will help counteract. And then you can use this color to kind of go around and shade and stuff as well, you know. But another nice thing that you can do, let's go into a totally different technique here actually, is take this color that we have and let's really thin it out with alcohol. Okay, let's do this. Let's get this. We're going to clean out our airbrush. Remember to always clean your airbrush out in between colors. And let's take a bunch of alcohol. Let's put this in a new cup just so we don't have as much paint to thin, because we don't need that much. Okay, let's go like this. Let's thin this way down. So it's pretty diluted. Okay, gotta make it very, very thin. And for this, I'm gonna put a glove on because this is a dirty process here. And we're gonna take a cut chip brush. This is a chip brush. It's a cheapy 1-inch chip brush here. Okay, we're gonna dip this in to our paint. And what I like to do is sort of let some of it come off on the napkin there, quite a bit of it. And then what we're going to do is like a spattering technique here. And this is a very subtle thing, and it'll go on kind of wet and glossy, and then it'll dry as a nice soft little broken up dot. And this will give your skin a little, like a whole nother different layer than all the other layers. If you get like a dot or two that's too wet or starting to drip or something like that, or just overall too harsh, just tap it with your finger. There we go, back to the tapping again. Tap, tap, tap. Now, one thing I don't like to do, and this is probably could use a little more, to be honest. I'm going to grab my thinned out color here because I thinned this a little too much maybe. And I'm going to add it to this mix because I feel like it's a little, just a hair too thinned out, you know. It's not showing up as strong as I would like. One thing about the speckling like this is you don't want the paint to show up too bad, you know, too dotty and opaque. You do want to be translucent spotting on there. If it's too spotty, it'll just look unnatural and unrealistic on your mask. You know what I mean? Like it won't it won't blend in with the rest of the skin. It won't look like a layer. It'll just look like a layer sitting on top of the skin rather than part of the skin, and that you don't want. So that's like where the paint is just too opaque. You can see there how I toned down some of these bigger dots. You know, you can just do that, and it'll almost dry up as like a sunspot or a skin spot, like on an old age person.
Could you also use that sponge to soften them out too?
You could, but you know, your finger is the best tool for this, really, because you can get in there and pick which ones you want. Whereas the sponge is bigger, you know, because you really just need to gravitate towards the ones that you don't like. Like right here, these are a little too much. So okay, I'll pop them down with my finger a little. And usually where you're going to get that is when you first dip the bristles of the brush into the paint. It's going to be so loaded up. That's why you'll see me like rub it. Like I'll take it. Sometimes I'll squeeze it out, but I'll just dab it on the paper towel so I don't have as much paint loaded into the bristles, because that's where that's going to tend to happen the most is when you have too much paint loaded. And sometimes you'll notice I'll turn the brush around in my hand because the paint's always from gravity going to fall, right? And then you turn it over and it's loaded with more paint. So you just then flick and then turn it back over. Because you'll see it how it starts to run out of paint to spatter. One trick I'm going to tell you guys too is I don't flick. A lot of people do this. They grab from here and they try to flick all the brush like this. That's not what I'm doing. Pay close attention. I'm just grabbing bristles at one back, at the very back. Okay? I'm not trying to spatter to get these bristles all to spatter in one big shot. That's going to just be overboard. You need to build this up subtly and slowly. So you'll see I'll just flick right at one side like this. Just a few bristles is all you need. And then flip it over, flick a few more bristles. That way you're putting it on more subtly. Because when I show this to a lot of students, they try to flick all the bristles in one go, and that's not the technique.
Like a mohawk.
Yeah, like you're flicking your hand through a mohawk or something. That's not the technique. And you can't control it as easily that way. So I got to be honest, everybody, try not to do that, because that can ruin, again, like get you in a spot where your mask is looking overdone. I'd rather just go around and carefully build this up, you know. Oops. Okay, so there I got way too much. So again, I'll just do this, and it just softens it right out. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking on purpose. I'm looking for areas that I feel like it needs like I haven't hit that area, or it needs a little bit more. And don't forget, you might have to even see, you got to be careful. See what I did there? There's alcohol, so it took the paint away a little bit. So now I'm gonna have to come back and be careful about getting that eyelid fixed, because that's another thing that can happen. But I got to make sure I've got the top of this head too. I kind of have to stand up to do this. All right, and then let's make sure, at the same time, let's make sure we've got the bottom of this gullet here. This big gargantuan. also the flicking of just the few bristles will give you more control, like where you want the spatter to go. That's another good reason to just do that. All right, so that's pretty much it for that technique. That gives you a good idea of how I go about spattering a mask. And again, you can spatter multiple layers on a mask. You can do different colors and skin tones if you need. All right, now one other technique. It'll be the last technique for the evening tonight. I'm going to show you guys a little something. Again, this is not all the way fully painted. Maybe we'll revisit this guy again on a stream and take him all the way. But for tonight, I want to show you guys one more little technique, and this is going to involve a wash color and kind of an enhancement. Oh shoot! I gotta grab a brush. I forgot to grab a brush. Getting everything. Okay, apologies everyone. Let's get a brush going here, something that we can use to do this technique. And what I'm going to do is kind of just take some of this wash color, and I'm just cleaning out my brush first to make sure there's no paint stuck in this thing, because I was using it today. There is paint stuck in it, so I want to get that out of there first of all, just so I'm not introducing that on my mask. All right, that's pretty good. Let's clean it off with some water so we don't have alcohol stuck in the brush. I think we're good to go. So this last technique I'm going to show you guys tonight is a little bit of an enhancement. I would usually do this at the very end of the paint job, but I'm just going to show it to you tonight since we've talked about it. And that would be like if you wanted to go around and sort of pick out some wrinkles and enhance them a little bit more. You know, this is a nice red tone, but it's super thin. It's a wash. It's from, I'll show you what it is. It's Citadel. It's a shade wash. So right out of the bottle, you know, it's very thin. In fact, I'm gonna take my glove off here. I can use my hand, because what I usually do is I come in and then I just kind of gently massage it away with my finger. You know, I'll run it through a wrinkle or something like that, and then you know, just massage it down a little bit or something. Some of these wrinkles are quite deep, so might not be able to get in there. So what you would want to do is maybe have an extra clean brush around, so that you can come in and get in those wrinkles and just sort of like soften out some of that. But this is just another way to push and enhance the wrinkles with just using a little wash. You know, we could get in here and do some of the eyelids, the bag of the eye, excuse me, not the lid, and just accentuate some wrinkles here. You can do the lips too, you know, get the lip wrinkles or whatever's in there, the details. So this is a nice subtle way to get some of this stuff to come out. You know, it's not as heavy as a standard wash or a glaze would be, but it's a more controlled way, and you can go back and build it up over and over again. So, you know, if you want to get in here and do this, you could get in there and do that. But anyway, you can go for hours with this. So it's a great technique. Gives you a nice, soft, subtle look. You know, if you wanted to accentuate some little pock marks, you could do that. You know, and it comes in a lot of colors. So there's colors you can buy and use as you know, let's say you wanted to do you know, I have a color here I can kind of illustrate this with, but let's say, you know, you wanted an old age spot or something, you know, I'll just take a little of this and redden this up here for you to get the right kind of tone. And you know, let's say they make a wash color kind of like this in this brand, and you can use it to do like your old age spots with a little brush. You can come in here and kind of just do little weird island shapes or spotty, you know, little old age type things, and let those dry, and it'll look like he's got some sunspots and stuff like that. You can kind of see there what's going on. So that's another technique that you can do. So now, you know, usually what I would do is take these layers and just keep going, you know, maybe do another sponging layer and whatnot. And if I would do a final sponging layer, probably of a creamy white or something. But what we'll do is save that for round 2, you know, and maybe we'll save this eye and the teeth and all that for another demo. But that's gonna pretty much wrap us up tonight on skin painting techniques. I just wanted to get into how my approach is for masks to help some of you guys out. There's been a lot of questions over the years about how I paint masks and what my techniques are, and I wanted to get in and show you some of those techniques. Before we go, let's just do another quick announcement on our giveaway. Keep in mind, as we get closer to that 1,000 subscriber point, we will be giving away 10 free painted sets of these awesome monster busts. You get a couple witches, you get a couple demons, and I'm going to paint these up really cool. And we'll give away 10 sets to 10 lucky winners once we hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. And that's our first giveaway of several more that we'll do down the road. So pretty cool. I want to thank all of you guys for sticking around tonight. I know there was a bit of a hiccup in the beginning. We appreciate you guys sticking around and coming back, joining us, sticking it out with us a little later tonight. Apologies for that. Can't help. Sometimes it's just glitchy with YouTube and the internet and whoever's fault it was. I'm going to blame all them. But I hope you learned something new tonight. Hopefully it was very helpful to all of you guys doing masks and painting masks. And keep in mind, you can catch me on my Facebook page, which is Casey Love. You can catch me on my Instagram, which is Casey Love Designs. My Instagram paint page is Casey Love Paintworks, and those are at Instagram, and you can follow me there. You can also please like and subscribe our YouTube channel content. We're always putting up new stuff every Monday night, and next week we will be doing, I believe, a ear sculpting demo on how to sculpt these lovely guys. My wife will be modeling her ears. No, I'm just kidding. She just looked at me all like, I will be showing you guys how I sculpt ears on masks and in wet clay, and how to take the human ear and then transform it into a monster ear. That will be next week's demo, so hopefully you can join us for that one. We have lots more coming. And you can also catch us on our Monday Night Monster page on Facebook. That's another great source. If you're not with us there, please join us there. And am I missing anything, man?
Tune in next Monday, 6 o'clock.
Next Monday, 6 o'clock, we will be here again, bringing more havoc, monster havoc on Monday nights to you to make your Monday that much better. Ryan, anything from you, buddy?
No, thank you everybody for the awesome questions, and Casey for tackling that. I think this is a video that generated a heck of a lot of interest for all the mask painters out there. We're getting tons of awesome feedback, so thank you everybody for tuning in.
Definitely
Yes.
Big support for part 2.
Yes. Thank you. And we'll be back with more painting, more sculpting, more goodness of all sorts. So from all of us here, thank you. And I want to say thanks to my wife, because every night before Monday night, she is cooking awesome meals for me. Ryan, you're not here. If you were here, you'd eat lovely meals with us. For Sam, and she's a hard worker and kills it every night and takes care of my dumbass. I'm just kidding. No, she takes care of us all, and so thanks to her for all her hard work, because she comes home after work and then cooks food for us to get us ready for this show so we can deliver to you guys. Anyway, thank you. All right, that's it from us. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next Monday.